Hey everyone, today is an exciting day because we are finally installing a cellular signal booster onto our RV. And for those of you that follow us, you know that we boondock and dry camp almost exclusively in the National Forest and BLM land where cellular signal can be pretty spotty and fairly weak. Now, we have had pretty good luck with finding sites that have decent cellular signal, but having a booster will just open up so many places that we can still stay. We almost have to still have cellular signal at our campsite because, we run our YouTube channel off of the cellular network. That's how we stay connected to the internet. So a cellular booster is going to be a huge help for us. The signal booster we decided to go with is the SolidRF RV Pro. And the main reason we chose this one is that it comes with 2 interior antennas. And that's a big deal for us because these signal booster inside antennas unfortunately have a fairly short range and we have a 25-foot trailer. So we want to be able to boost our cellular signal on both sides of the trailer, and the RV Pro by SolidRF allows us to do that. The RV Pro comes in a really nice hardshell carrying case, and this kit includes everything that the vast majority of people will need to install this unit, aside from adhesive that you'll need to affix the mounting plate to the roof of your RV, as well as a couple of things that we need for our specific application. And this includes butyl tape to seal the holes that we're going to be drilling into our roof to mount the mounting plate for the amplifier, as well as a 12-volt cigarette lighter style power port and some cable clamps just to ensure a clean install. And of course, there is an Amazon affiliate link in the description below if you want to check out the SolidRF RV Pro for yourself. Now let's get to the install. So the first part of the install is up on the roof of your RV, and that is to mount the amplifier mounting plate to the roof. So the amplifier will sit on top of that bracket, and then there will be another L bracket that the outside antenna mounts to. And the instructions say to just use an adhesive to mount this to the roof. However, if you have a fiberglass roof or if you have a Class B with a metal roof, that's a great thing that you can do. You can just use an adhesive, but since we have this rubber roof, I'm not really comfortable just adhering it to that, so we're actually going to use butyl tape as well as screwing through that butyl tape into the wood rafters of the roof of our trailer, and I think that'll give us a more secure hold than just adhering it to the rubber roof. And since we're going to be screwing it, we're actually going to need another thing that was not included with the kit, and that is this Dicor lap sealant and a caulk gun, so that we can make sure that we have a watertight seal around those screw holes so we don't get any water intrusion into the rig. Now the instructions say that the inside antenna cannot be further than 1.5 feet in any direction from the outside antenna. And since we're going to be mounting the inside antenna right here in this back corner of our trailer, obviously down inside, then this outside antenna cannot be further than 1.5 feet away from that. So there is a rafter that runs right about here that we're gonna screw in to these holes in the bracket. And then these screws aren't gonna hit a rafter, unfortunately, but I still think it's gonna be a strong enough hold screwing down into the 1/4 inch piece of plywood. But to find the stud, we're gonna use this stud finder, or I guess to find the rafter, we're gonna use a stud finder. But before we do that, we need to make sure that the whole area is clean. So just use a cleaner that's safe to use with your whatever type of roof you have, just to make sure there's no dirt, debris, or anything that's gonna keep your adhesive from holding. And then using a stud finder, we can find the rafter. Our plate is lined up with the rafter so that all of our holes, or all of our screws will hit. And then I'm gonna mark my hole centers with a pen. And then we can start drilling our pilot holes for the screws that we're going to be using. I'm using number 12 screws, so the pilot hole bit I'm using is an 1/8 inch bit. Then we'll go ahead and place our butyl tape strip over those holes that we're going to be screwing down into, and this will help us get a nice watertight seal. So I'm doing something a little odd here. I've got the screws punctured through the butyl tape, and I've got every screw started in the hole that it's going down into, but just started because I want to get this die-core lap sealant down in those holes also. So I'm going to apply it to the threads of each screw so that even the threaded holes themselves are watertight. I'm just really trying to do everything I can to prevent water intrusion on this. So I'm gonna get a nice thick glob of this die core on each of the threads, kind of like with what you would do with like a Loctite or some other sort of a thread locker. And then we'll go ahead and screw all these screws down. And then all the butyl tape that has squeezed out from the pressure of that plate being drawn down can be cleared out. And then I'm going to apply a liberal amount of die core over all of the screw heads and onto the top of this plate and around the sides of it, just so we get a nice watertight seal. And I'm even going to put die core in these grooves just so no water can get between the plate and the rubber roof. Not sure if that's needed, but it sure will make me feel better. And then the next step is to mount the amplifier to the roof mounting plate. And you'll see that there are these 4 raised bosses that this just sits on top of, and then you use the supplied hardware to screw it down to that plate. And then the next step is to mount the outside antenna to the amplifier. And it uses these various components that are in front of me right here. You mount everything to this bracket, and then this bracket mounts to the amplifier. And you know, it's the instructions tell you exactly how to do it right here. So I'm not gonna go through, you know, all of it step by step, because you know, it's just screw this into that and screw that into this and then mount it. So boom, it should look like this when you're all done assembling this sub-assembly. And the big thing to remember is that you have to thread this cable up in through this hole and connect it to the outside antenna before mounting it to this antenna rod, I guess you'd call it, using these 3 bolts. And now we're ready to put this whole L bracket onto the back of the antenna here. Again, using supplied hardware, they've just given these wing nuts that you can thread through these holes to mount the L bracket to the antenna, or amplifier, I'm sorry. And then we can go ahead and connect the cable leading from the outside antenna to the amplifier's ANT2 port. And once we're done with that, our assembly should look like this. Now thankfully we're almost done up on the roof of the trailer. The last thing we need to do is attach this cable to the back of the amplifier's ANT1 port, and this is the cable that leads down into the trailer and attaches to the inside antenna. So you can go ahead and attach this to the back of the amplifier now. And then we need to find a way to route this cable inside the RV so that it can attach to the inside antenna. And there's a number of ways that you can do this. You can run it down and through a slide, like through the seal of your slide, or if you have some other sort of way to route it down in, like we are going to use our fridge vent, which we're also running our leads from our solar panels down into the trailer. So thankfully we've got the fridge vent, which is available to us, but if you don't have anything like that available, you may need to drill another hole in your roof that you can then run this cable down to your interior antenna. Like I said, thankfully we've got our fridge vent. It's a really easy and convenient way to get stuff like this down into the inside of the trailer. Just about 4 feet away from where we mounted the amplifier is our fridge vent. And like I said, this is gonna be where we're routing this cable down into. Thankfully, this is a nice long cable. It's 20 feet long, but if it's not long enough to reach from the amplifier to your point of entry, down into the trailer, and then to wherever you may place the interior antenna inside, they also include another 20-foot extension cable for 40 feet total. And hopefully that'll be long enough to fit just about any application. But I've already removed the 4 screws from the cover of our fridge vent, so we can go ahead and take that off. And then the mesh that leads down behind the fridge is a pretty fine mesh, so I'm gonna need to cut it a little bit just to fit the head of this cable down into, which I did that before to fit the wires that lead from our solar panels down into. So I'll go ahead and make another opening large enough for that. And this is a wire mesh, so I'm just using regular wire cutters. And then I can go ahead and run this cable down behind the fridge. And then the very last thing we need to do up here on the roof is install a few cable clamps that will just hold this cable in place, the one that runs from the amplifier to the inside antenna, just so it doesn't, slap around and move around a whole bunch when you are on the road. Make sure that you put down a liberal amount of die-core under those cable clamps, then screw the screw down in so that it gets into the threads of the screw, and then put another large amount of die-core all around that clamp and over the head of the screw, just to make sure you get a watertight seal. I can get to the cable that we just ran down the fridge vent by removing the cover that exposes the backside of the refrigerator, and then I can get this cable to the inside of the trailer by running it through this board right here. Now thankfully I've already got this little access hole that I drilled back when I installed my solar system. This is the negative and positive wires that run down to the solar controller, so I can just press this cable down through that hole, and then this cable is on the inside of the trailer. And now we're finally able to start working inside the RV. This is our fridge right here. So this compartment behind this panel right here is where this cable has now ran to. So we want to run this cable from this compartment on over to where we're going to be mounting the inside antenna, which is right here. And we're mounting it here because this is where we work. Like our desk is right here and our laptops are here. So our hotspots and our phones are going to be right in this area, providing internet to our laptops. So we need to move this cable from here over to this compartment, and thankfully there's already a hole from this compartment to this one, so I can just route this through that hole. And then I need to drill a hole in this wall right here that's right on the other side of this compartment to then run the cable over to that and then over to the interior antenna. So we can go ahead and remove this panel right here, and this is the access bay where the water heater is stored at in our trailer, if you're curious. So thankfully there's, like I said, there's an already existing hole at the back of this compartment that leads into this compartment for water lines and the shore power cable. So I can just reach back and get that cable through that hole. It's at the very back. All right. And I can pull that through. All right. We've got the cable now, and so now the only thing that we need to do is drill a hole through this wall, the wall of this bay, that's just big enough to slip this through, and we're good to go. And we are definitely going to need the 20-foot extension cable that comes with this. I'm so glad they included this. We've got plenty of wire or cable now for this, and I think this is a lot of extra, so I think I'm actually going to connect this here, and then I'm going to pull all of this extra back through and keep it in this bay right here, because there's just plenty of room in this one where, you know, this whole big winding is going to lead to. So now we got to get the drill out and drill the hole through this wall. So now I'm going to step drill my way up to a 3/8 bit, which is going to be big enough for that cable to fit through. And I've already checked behind this. There are no wires that this is going to hit. There's nothing, as long as I don't go too deep with it. Obviously, if I go too deep, I'll hit the water heater. But once I punch through, then I'll stop and we'll be good to go. Now it's such a tight fit back there, I think it's going to be easier to route this cable through the hole backwards and then pull it through. So go ahead and push this in. There we go. Whew. All right, we have it. And then we can connect those again. All right. So now the amplifier up on the roof is connected to our interior antenna. I was able to clean up the wire run a little better by kind of running it under the carpet, behind the desk, and then up to the interior antenna. So it looks a lot cleaner. You know, you don't really see that wire running all around. I pulled the slack back from the wire, and it's kind of wound up in the compartment directly under the fridge. And now I need to install the second interior antenna. Like I said, this is one of the main reasons we went with this setup, because it has two interior antennas. The range of these is really only about 4 feet, maybe even less. So, you know, it's not going to be very far reaching. Certainly we're not going to see positive effects from this interior antenna on the opposite side of our trailer, which is a 25-foot trailer. So we're going to place this more in a central area, kind of by the front door, which is sort of in the middle of the trailer, so that then we'll have a 4-foot radius around this where we'll see an increase in signal strength. And thankfully this comes with a pretty long cable of its own, and it also has this you know, extension cable for this as well. So I think this is 10 feet and this appears to be maybe 5. So this is about 15 feet of length, so we'll definitely be able to get to the middle of our trailer with this. So the very last step of this project is to power it. And one of the really nice things about this kit is that it comes with both an AC 120 volt power plug as well as a DC 12 volt plug. So if you have a 12 volt source handy, you can power this, but if you don't, you can power it with the 120 volt plug. So if I were an RVer that stayed at RV parks all the time and had shore power, or if we had our inverter on all the time, then this step would be really easy. And all I would have to do is plug this in here and then plug that into the inside antenna. Done. But like I said earlier, that's not how we RV. We boondock and dry camp in the National Forest and BLM land almost exclusively, so we actually have to go this route. And unfortunately, we don't have a 12 volt plug like this anywhere in the trailer, let alone one that's close to this interior antenna right here. So pick this up off of Amazon. It's just a 12 volt plug, and I'm gonna wire this in really close to where the cable ran from up on the roof down here. I'm going to drill in a hole right down there that this will then run to and plug into. And thankfully my AC and DC power panel is just right there. So finding a wire that I can tap into to power this plug is going to be really easy. Being able to power this off of DC is really nice anyway, just because your batteries are always supplying DC power to all the various electronics. However, the 120 volt AC outlets are only powered if you either are plugged into shore power, or your generator is running and plugged into your shore power cable, or if you have an inverter and your inverter is on. However, like I said, this is always being powered, and it will make it so this draws less power. These don't really draw very much power anyway, but when you're in our situation where you are living off of solar, every little bit helps. So we're definitely going the DC route. Let's do it. Now, using this hole saw, I'm going to drill a hole that's just barely bigger than the cylindrical diameter of the plug here, and then this will just mount right to the side of this wall. Real nice. And like before, I'm going to feed the positive and negative wires through here and then pull them through. And one of the nice things about this kit that I bought is it comes with a 10 amp fuse, so that, you know, if this were to short circuit or something, it would blow the fuse as opposed to starting a fire, which is always nice, right? And then we can connect to the positive terminal and then negative. And there's a little positive and minus on the back of this to make it nice and easy. And then we can push this through. And this kit came with its own mounting screws. Now I'm pretty lucky with how my trailer is set up, because that 12 volt plug is really close to my AC and DC electrical panel here. So it's really easy for me to find a place to run these wires into to power that plug. But if your electrical panel is nowhere near your plug, if you're wiring in a 12 volt plug like I am, then you can just find something else that has 12 volt power supply to it. Like, for instance, I could find a wire that I could tap into for the water heater that helps power the water heater, or if you have lights nearby. Well, hi, Allie. If you have lights nearby, you can tap into something, you know, one of the wires that are powering those lights, anything like that, and that'll be just fine. However, I want to go directly into the panel. There is a terminal that's empty in my panel, and that's where I'm going to place the positive wire. And then there is a ground bus behind this panel where I'm going to place the negative wire. So taking this off is really easy. There's just two screws here to get this cover off. And then that just pulls off. And you can see right here, this is the terminal, the empty terminal that I'm going to be placing the positive or the red wire into. But I want to bring it around from the back, so I just have to pop this panel out. And then it pulls right out. And then I can fish these wires up. There's already a hole that leads down into this bay with the water heater, so I can just fish these wires up through that hole, and then I can pull them out through the top. So the positive wire, I'm just going to pass through this hole in this, and then I am going to place it into this terminal. But before I do that, I'm also going to get the black wire into the ground bus back here. Now, thankfully there are a good number of open terminals on this ground bus, so I'm gonna go ahead and loosen this terminal up. We can put our wire in there now. And then tighten that terminal back down. And that should give us a good ground. Do a pull test on that to make sure it's good. Okay. Now we're finished back behind the AC panel, so we can go ahead and put that back in. And I think it goes without saying that you need to make sure that your trailer is unplugged and your battery is disconnected before you start messing around with this panel, because you don't want to get shocked, obviously. So unplug it from any sort of 120 volt AC power source, which would be a shore power cable, and then also disconnect your battery so that the DC side is not energized as well. And then we can screw this back in. And we can loosen up this terminal. Slide our red wire in. Tighten that down. Alright, and give that a little pull test just to make sure it's secure, which it is. Alright, and then just kind of feed this wire back in just to make it look cleaner. Put our cover panel back on. All right. Now this DC plug has a little green light on the back of it that should light up if this plug is powered correctly. So let's give it a shot. All right, yes. All right, the plug is powered, so we can go ahead and run this wire up and over to the interior antenna. And we can plug this in. Hopefully that light turns on. All right, we are powered. And to clean up that wire run, I also went ahead and just stuffed it under the carpet so that you couldn't see the wire up until it goes up and behind the desk to plug into the interior antenna. And now for the most exciting part. We get to actually test and see if the signal booster is working and helps to improve my cellular signal strength. So you can see right now my cell phone is telling me that my signal strength is right around negative 120 decibels, which is actually considered dead zone. Where we're at, the cellular signal strength for Verizon is really weak. So we're gonna see if even in this awful cellular signal area, if plugging in the cellular booster helps. So we're gonna go ahead and plug that in. And we're gonna see. So you can see there was a massive improvement in cellular strength. Negative 90 decibels is considered excellent cellular strength, and that would be full bars. And you can see we're really close to negative 90 decibels of 4G LTE cellular signal. So that is incredibly exciting. It took us from almost dead zone signal strength to full bars, nearly full bar signal strength. So that is really exciting. And just for yucks, I'm gonna go ahead and unplug it, and we're gonna see what the cellular signal strength drops back down to. Yeah, and there you see, it's down to almost dead zone signal strength again. So that's really exciting. And now I'm gonna run a similar test for the secondary antenna. The cell phone is right next to the secondary antenna, and we're seeing negative 109 decibels, which isn't as bad as the other part of the trailer where we were seeing almost dead zone levels of signal strength. So now I'm gonna go ahead and plug in the signal booster and see how it improves it. And there we go. We see that it improves the cellular signal strength over 90 decibels. So this is an excellent cellular signal strength from the secondary antenna as well. So hopefully now, throughout the vast majority of our trailer, we will be able to have boosted Verizon cellular signal. That's really cool. And that's it. This was a really easy and straightforward install, and we are so excited to finally have a cellular signal booster now because, like I said, we rely on the cellular network to have internet access on the road. We primarily stay in the National Forest and BLM land where cellular signal can be really spotty. So the test showed that it can take us to nearly dead zone levels of signal strength, all the way up to having excellent signal, which is very exciting. And we can't wait to see how this actually performs for us in practice. In a future video, I'm going to also be installing SolidRF's Mobile Force 4G into our truck so that we also have a cellular signal booster in our truck, which is going to be a huge help for us because we do have our live sessions a lot while we're traveling from location to location. So something like this is going to be a big help for us also. But like I said, there will be links to everything in the description below, so you can check out the RV Pro from SolidRF as well as their Mobile Force 4G if you're interested in those for yourself. And I'll also include a link to that 12-volt DC plug that I installed as well, in case you need to install something like that for your application. But if you have any questions at all about the install or how the SolidRF RV Pro is performing for us, feel free to drop those in the comments below, and be sure to check back for the installation of the SolidRF Mobile Force 4G, which will be in a future video. I'll catch you guys later. Bye.